Hello, everybody, and how are we all doing on this Saturday morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world? Hi, Mr. Red. Mr. Red says, "Hey, how we doing? Good afternoon. Happy 30th anniversary to the King of New York, right up there with Goodfellas." Damn straight, Mr. Red. King of New York, amazing film. For a long time, one of Scorsese's most underrated movies. But now, finally, I think it's got the reputation it deserves, especially because of the new Joker movie. You know, with that film being clearly inspired by films like Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. King of Comedy is kind of getting its reputation up in the world now. So yeah, that's really nice. I'm really happy with that. It's always nice when a new movie comes out. I mean, you get this with Tarantino's films as well. When a new movie comes out and the movie is clearly inspired by previous films, and then those previous films get a bit more bit more pedigree, bit more known. You know, people who didn't previously know about them end up hearing about them and watching. Like, say, for example, Tarantino's Django Unchained. That made people hear about the original Django movie made in the 60s, and people watched that. So that's always nice. And, you know, it's the case with the King of Comedy, I guess, as well. King of Comedy is definitely one of Martin Scorsese's best films. Maybe top 5 Scorsese film, in my opinion. So I'm talking here for the past whole minute about King of Comedy, and now I've just realised, as Mr. Red has pointed out, I'm talking about the wrong film. I've misread King of New York, not King of Comedy. Sorry about that, guys. But let's see who's on. Hi, Mr. Butterfield. True Harm. How you doing? Cyborg. David. Yeah, all the gang's all here. The Usual Suspects. By the way, that's a great film if you haven't seen it. 1995, The Usual Suspects with Kevin Spacey, Benicio del Toro. A brilliant crime film with a good twist. I should do a retro review of it one day. I don't think I've ever made a video on The Usual Suspects. Mr. Red says Quentin Tarantino is the best. I love his films and even him as a person. He seems like a really nice but fun guy to work with. Yeah, I'm not sure about him as a person. If I would like him. I mean, he's very energetic, very fun to be around. I think it'd be really cool to work for him though. He when you see behind the scenes B-roll footage and stuff of his movies, he does seem like a cool guy to be working for. Alright, so Mr. Red says it's all good. King of New York does have a Scorsese feel to it. It does have a Scorsese influence and motivation to it. I mean, if Bad Lieutenant is anything to go by, then I would imagine you're right, because when I watched Bad Lieutenant, as recommended by you guys, I did feel that this very much feels like it's been influenced by Scorsese's movies in a good way. You know, it was a very good film, and it did feel like almost like a Scorsese film in the 1970s. You know, it felt very Taxi Driver-esque. So, you know, I'm looking forward to watching King of New York after watching Bad Lieutenant, if it's anything like that. So where are we? Uh, Elgis, is that how you pronounce it? Elgis is asking, what is your favourite Scorsese film? It's difficult, really difficult. Um, as a kind of default answer, I usually tell people it flip flops between Raging Bull, Goodfellas, and Taxi Driver. Although that's not really my favorite. That's such a difficult question. You know, you got those three. King of Comedy, as I've mentioned, I'm a really big fan of that film. I love Casino, big fan of The Irishman, and there's a few others. You know, it's really difficult to pin down one. Best, I mean, if someone put a gun to my head, I'd say best Scorsese film is probably Taxi Driver. My favorite, I guess, Goodfellas. I think that's a safe enough pick. Yes, Mr. Butterfield. It's like he's on high on coke all the time. That's the kind of vibe you get about Tarantino. He probably is, you know. Josh asks thoughts on Michael Mann's 2003 Collateral. Collateral is probably the last excellent movie Michael Mann made. I think it was that was when he started to tinker around with digital cameras, and the more he went down that road, the worse his films got. I wasn't a big fan of Miami Vice. I know it has its fans. It's become something of a cult film now. I didn't think Public Enemies was as good as it could have been. I wasn't a fan of Blackheart or Black Heat, whatever it's called. And it feels as though he's tinkering around more with the cameras than focusing on the plot and the story and the characters. And the reason why I mention that is because his first movie that he shot digitally, Collateral, was extremely good. And part of the reason why it was so good was because of the way he shot it. So that's where he kind of, in a way, kind of peaked. And I thought it was a really good film. One of those excellent movies set over the course of a night. Tom Cruise was fantastic in it as a bad guy. I think, if I remember correctly, the only bad guy he's ever played in a film. If you don't count cameos like his role in Tropic Thunder, really good film. A really nice atmosphere, vibe. There's loads of little scenes that stick with you, like that part where they stop at a traffic light or something, and they see some wolves. If I remember correctly, it's wolves that kind of just cross the road. And it feels like such a spontaneous moment. Like the wolves just happened to be there and they started rolling the cameras. Those little things like that happen in the film where it feels very real. A very cool movie. One of Michael Mann's best, definitely. I really like that film. David's asking my favourite Sophia Coppola directed movie. I've not seen any of Sophia's films, to be honest. I've heard she's done pretty good films here, and they Lost in Translation is the one that comes to mind, which is something of a modern classic, isn't it? True Harm says I should watch Ghost Dog. Someone mentioned it last week. Yes, they did, and it's been on my watch list for a long time. I've been wanting to watch that for a long time. Must get around to it. There's this people throw me in real life, as in people I meet, and obviously on the YouTube channel. People are throwing me with film suggestions all the time, and it's so difficult to get through all of them. Mr. Butterfield asking, you've asked the same question. I should have given it more thought. So Mr. Butterfield asked a question last week. What is a film that has a different effect on me now that I'm older? Because I was talking about that. I was mentioning how movies have a really good effect because we as people change when we grow, and the films themselves stay the same, but the way we perceive them changes because of, we're essentially new people after 20, 30 years, and because of our experiences, we've changed, we've evolved. And Mr. Butterfield asked a very good question, which is, give an example. And I'm sorry to say, Mr. Butterfield, I didn't give it any extra thought, and I still can't give an example. I'm struggling to think, As you guys know, my mind often goes blank when I'm going live. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that, Mr. Butterfield. Sorry about that. Joe says The King of Comedy is a great movie too. Yes, it is. Fantastic film. Mr. Red says, yeah, for me it's hard to say which Scorsese film is my favourite. I want to be typical and say Taxi Driver, Mean Streets and Goodfellas. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being typical, Reggie30 says, favourite Pacino performance? Pacino's done a huge heap of great performances, hasn't he? Michael Corleone in the second Godfather film comes to mind. Even the one in his performance in the first, because of the transformation, which in itself was incredible. I don't know why, but the one that always sticks out for me, there's two actually, and it's no surprise that the film's directed by Sidney Lumet, who was known as the actor's director, famous for getting amazing performances out of his cast. But Serpico and Dog Day Afternoon come to mind. I know Pacino is quite over the top in Dog Day Afternoon, but I remember watching that and being blown away by his acting, and I think maybe could I call it his best performance? I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Maybe Serpico. Serpico is a very understated performance, and then he goes ballistic in certain scenes, doesn't he? But you can feel the tension and the simmering frustration in him, the sense of regret and isolation and the grief over how his colleagues treat him. I'm going to go for Serpico, Regin, sorry. I'm going to go for Serpico as Pacino's, my favourite Pacino performance. Dr. Goldfinger asks, when is the Rambo review coming on, by the way? Is that the new Rambo, I'm guessing? Yeah, because I mentioned it, didn't I? In a couple of live streams ago, that I reviewed the Rambo film, the new one, Rambo Lost Blood, but I haven't released it. If you want, because I didn't release a video today, did I? No, so I'll tell you what, guys. Once this live stream is finished, I'll do up my my Rambo review. Like, I'll do the title and all that, because what I do is I upload a video. I don't do the title or the description. I just kind of set it to private, and then later on I do it. I'll do up the video and I'll release it today if you want. My review of Rambo Lost Blood, the latest Rambo film. A few people have been asking for it. Mr. Butterfield asks, why do you think directors lose their touch with old age? Well, I mean, it depends on the individual, obviously, doesn't it? I mean, some of them don't lose their touch. Some of them get better. Some of them evolve with the times, like, say, Martin Scorsese, who's become, I'd say, more mainstream now than he was before. Like hiring, big stars like Leonardo DiCaprio to get the funding and making certain compromises and sacrifices. But there's been plenty of filmmakers who have obviously ran out of puff. And I mean, in and amongst many reasons, I would say, because creatively, they, could basically lose their spark, as in they've told the stories they want to tell, and they don't have much to say anymore. A fair few become directors for hire, and a lot of them have cited battles with the studios. Like, they're tired. Coppola has said that in a recent video I made on The Godfather. I mentioned that one of the reasons why Coppola doesn't want to do part 4 is because he doesn't want to be fighting with producers. John Carpenter mentioned that the reason why he stopped making films after Ghost of Mars for so long, before he made The Ward, about 20 years later or something. Sorry, no, I think it was 10 years later, wasn't it? But he mentioned as well, battles with producers. So I think they just get tired, if there was opportunity for many of these guys to make the films the way they want to make them, with no hassle, no frustration, I think a fair few of them would. I mean, making movies is hard, I mean, we as film viewers, we think it's easy. And it's very easy for us to sit on our couches, like me, for example, and review films and review a movie that took a couple of guys 5 years to make, and just review it for 5 minutes and say it was shit. But ultimately, when you hear behind the scenes stories, making films is hard, and I think even making one film is a big undertaking. I know people who have made films, and it's not easy. So with anything, getting older, you just run out of puff, don't you? So I think that's one of the main reasons why directors will lose their touch with old age. Matt's Jada, nice to have you on, mate. Do you like Clockwork Orange or Kubrick in general? He asks. Yes, I do. Clockwork Orange is one of my favorite films. I think I gave it a 9 out of 10, but I didn't. That was on my IMDb account. I don't think I've reviewed it on my YouTube channel. He is. If you check out a video I did called My Top 10 Favorite Film Directors, a very long video, I think it's like an hour and a half long. I talk a lot about Stanley Kubrick, who is in my top 10, so I love him very much. I loved 2001. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had with a film. Really big fan of Barry Lyndon, which is actually my favourite Kubrick film. And I've seen a few others here and there: Shining, Full Metal Jacket, Spartacus. All great films. But the top 3 for me are 2001, Clockwork Orange, and Barry Lyndon. I really like those 3. He was one of the greatest of all time, wasn't he? Mr. Red, do you have a favourite Mickey Rourke film? I haven't seen enough of his filmography to say I have a favourite Mickey film. Like The Wrestler, for example, I haven't seen that. I know that's supposed to be his big comeback film, wasn't it? The one that he apparently gave a career best performance. I've only seen Love Heart. Love Heart, is that what it's called? Sorry, what am I talking about? Angel Heart, yeah. 1987 with De Niro. I actually made a video on this a while back, where Rocky and De Niro apparently don't like each other and they've got a bit of a feud going on. I've seen Iron Man 2, he was in that, and I've seen 1 or 2 other films, but to be honest, I can't say I've got a favourite Rocky film, because I haven't seen enough. Mr. Butterfield says Mean Streets is such a great film, yet underrated. Yeah, I mean it's really wonderful to see that film after watching Goodfellas and Casino, and I guess The Irishman as well, because you can see the genius, but it hasn't quite manifested itself yet to the masterful status that Scorsese would eventually get to. Mean Streets is a very rough around the edges film, but you can kind of see the greatness, not just with Scorsese obviously, but De Niro's in the film, who actually gives one of his best performances of his career, and Harvey Keitel. The beginning, not necessarily the beginning, because he was in one or two Scorsese films before that, but the beginning of a beautiful working relationship there as well. Richie Aprile from The Sopranos is in it. A very young Richie Aprile is in Mean Streets, by the way, if you guys don't know. Adam says, "What's up, CR? Ever seen Scorsese's doc that he did that stars his parents talking about their lives in Little Italy? Sorry, I love it. That was Italian America, wasn't it? I haven't seen that. I haven't seen any of Scorsese's documentaries, but I do want to watch them, especially that one. I have it, and I was watching bits and pieces of it. Just his parents sitting there, just talking about their lives and living in their neighborhood. It sounds really interesting. I do want to watch that, Adam. But I know, to answer your question, I haven't seen it yet. Not in total. Mr. Red said it was really refreshing to see Tom Cruise play a villain in Collateral. Yeah, it was, man. He was brilliant as a bad guy, and you get that a lot, don't you? When traditional good guys play bad guys, they tend to do a really good job. The one that comes to mind is Henry Fonda in Once Upon a Time in the West, who was famous for playing good guys, and he gave one of the best performances ever as a bad guy, one of the very best characters in the Western film genre. Frank was his character's name. Tom Cruise is a great example. I wish he tried it a bit more. I mean, I think with these film stars, a lot of them, they don't want to hurt their image. They've got a brand, haven't they? The Rock, for example, he will not take on certain roles where his character will do dodgy stuff because it'll hurt his brand. I think Will Smith does the same thing. But I mean, if these guys kind of and obviously you've got Stallone and Schwarzenegger, who in their heyday, if I remember correctly, they didn't want to play bad guys because it would hurt their image as action heroes. So, but I mean, when they do it, a lot of them do a good job. Tom Cruise is a wonderful example. He was really great in Collateral. It was a really masterful casting on the part of Michael Mann to put him in the film as the bad guy. El Rue says the Thin Red Line is on. I rate it as one of the best war movies ever made, and I prefer it to Private Ryan. I want to watch that. I'm really behind with Terrence Malick. I've only seen one of his films, Days of Heaven. That's the only film of his I've seen. I've not seen any of the others. Only thing I know about Thin Red Line is how many famous people were in it, and the famous story of Adrian Brody turning up to the premiere thinking he was the main character in the film, and then being told or having to watch the fact that he was essentially a cameo in the film, which is a classic staple of Terrence Malick, because he does so much in the editing. He changes up the films, doesn't he? But yeah, I haven't seen that, but I do want to watch it. Cyborg's got an interesting question here. Which director has gone worse with worst or you know what I mean? Which director has gone worse with age? Ridley Scott, Tim Burton, or Woody Allen? Now with Allen, I can't really comment. I haven't seen too many of his recent films. I did see that one where he did an adaptation of Streetcar Named Desire with I can't remember her name now. I think it was called Blue Valentine, something like that. No, Blue Jasmine, yeah. That was quite recent. I think that was 2011. I like that film. That was a good film. But I've not seen any of his other films in the last 10 years or so. I did see that Vicky Cristina Barcelona, I think it was called, that kind of three-way love movie that he had with Scarlett Johansson. That was shit, I thought. It was a very artsy-fartsy kind of film. So yeah, I've not seen much of him, so I can't really comment on him too much. haven't seen many of his recent films, but Ridley Scott and Tim Burton. I would say Tim Burton is the one, definitely, who's gotten worse with age. Many of his recent... I mean, he's not horrendous, but you look at Tim Burton's old films, there's so much creativity, there's so much magic, his films epitomize the phrase magic of cinema. Ed Wood, for example, an amazing film. I actually teared up watching that film. It was so good. You got Sleepy Hollow and all the other great creative films he made in his early career. But like we were talking about in the beginning of this live stream, some directors, they burn out. Creatively, I can't say that word. Creatively, is that even a word? Anyway, but in terms of their creativity, they burn out. And Tim Burton is a good example. His recent films, full of CGI, lacking in color, lacking in imagination. A lot of them are just so poo. I wonder how much of it is his fault, because I've heard stories that he tries to get other kind of films greenlit, like obviously Blue Eyes, a film that he did that wasn't these kind of weirdo gothic films that he does. But studios don't want to do it because he's got a brand, which is obviously the weirdo gothic movies. Ridley Scott, I think, can still make good films. I'm a big fan of Scott in many ways, but I think with him it's a case of he needs a good script. The how good his films are depend on how good the script is. You give him a good script, he'll give you a good movie. You give him a shit script, he'll give you a shit movie. That's just how it is with Scott. So this guy can still do the business, I think, if he's got a decent script. Some of his upcoming films sound quite interesting. He's got a film called The Last Duel coming out, which is about the last ever recorded official duel between two people. The one that he's making a film, a murder film. I think the working title right now is Gucci. And I made a video on this, by the way, if you want to hear more details. But Scott wants Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in the film, in addition to guys like Adam Driver and a lot of other well-known actors. So that is a project, if they get that together, that'll be interesting to see. It'd be wonderful to see De Niro and Pacino in the same film after The Irishman. I never thought it'd happen. I thought, The Irishman that's it. We're never going to see De Niro and Pacino again in the same film. So the idea that that might happen is wonderful. Regin says, thoughts on The Sopranos? Yeah, man, I love The Sopranos. I don't know if you know, but I've made loads of videos on The Sopranos, and I'm going to continue doing that. Fantastic series. Perhaps the greatest series. Definitely, in terms of the modern series, one of the greatest. And it paved the way for the golden age of television, didn't it? It showcased and started a lot of things that went on to become mainstream in television that you could only previously do on the big screen. Every episode is almost like a mini movie unto itself. Fantastic characters, really memorable storylines, great dialogue, and loads of fantastic themes. It's just a brilliant series, The Sopranos. Every time you watch it, you just pick up new things again and again. Josh Montez says, did you know Michael Mann originally wanted De Niro to have grey hair for Heat? Tom Cruise would eventually rock that haircut in Collateral. The wolves in the film are symbolic. I don't think I knew that, but that makes sense, because it's interesting that Tom Cruise and De Niro's character in Heat, they look a bit similar, don't they? Like with the suits and the hair. It's almost like they've been bled from the same character template. David says, my favorite Scorsese movie is Hugo. I love that movie. Yeah, I like that movie as well. A good love letter to cinema. It's a shame that I never got to see it in 3D, so I don't know how good the 3D is, but everybody goes on about the 3D, and James Cameron himself praised the 3D, so that tells you what you need to know. But that's a film I want to watch in 3D. Regin says, Dog Day Afternoon is amazing. Yes, it is. Fantastic film. Josie asks, where are you from? I'm from the UK, England. Mr. Red says, I really like Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman. I thought he did a fantastic job playing a blind man. That was bitter and authentic. Authentically finds his way through happiness. He was good in that film. I didn't think it was anywhere near his best, and it was kind of poo, really, in the sense that not the performance, but the fact that he's done so many great performances and he wins for Scent of a Woman. Just because, so many performances that came before that was so good. But yeah, I agree, he was good in Scent of a Woman. He gets a bit too much flack for that, with the people making fun of his hoo-ha and all that. But it was different, because good Pacino performances in general have him going, chewing the scenery or giving subtle performances where he emits atmosphere and persona, like in obviously the Michael Corleone films. But with Scent of a Woman, it was a bit different because this was a good technical performance in that he really did seem like he was a blind person, that kind of blank look in his eyes. So yeah, I agree with you, good performance. I don't think it was one of his very best, not from the top drawer, but I think that says more about how good of an actor Pacino is than the performance itself. Yeah, and like you said, Al Pacino is just a great actor in general. Dr. Goldfinger says, I just got back from watching Tenet for the second time. I picked up a few more things this time. Have you seen it? What thoughts do you have around it? I haven't seen it yet, no. I'm going to wait until, because in my area, with the whole COVID thing, things are pretty bad. It's not that safe where I am at the moment. In fact, in my country, there's talks of us going into a second national lockdown. But anyway, I've not seen Tenet. I do want to. I'm always looking out for the next Christopher Nolan film. What did you think of it? I think you spoke about it last week. I think it was, wasn't it? Did you think it was better the second time you watched it? Worse? Let us know. Adam says Pacino played Dr. Jack Kevorkian on HBO movie You Don't Know Jack, and he killed it. Yeah, I've seen that. I was watching a few. This was obviously before The Irishman came out. I was watching a few modern Pacino films. A lot of them were quite forgettable, but You Don't Know Jack stood out. I don't necessarily agree with the character himself, but I thought Pacino was really good in that film. That was a very strong Pacino performance comparatively to the kind of performances he had been doing at the time. Regin says, I agree with your take on The Irishman. I didn't like it as much the first time watching, but I watched it again this past Sunday and I got to appreciate it more. Yeah, I think that's a sentiment a lot more people are going to have, because the film kind of takes you aback in many ways. The de-aging CGI obviously is the big thing, and there's a few other things that are quite surprising, and first time you watch it, it's difficult to swallow. And second time, I've said this to a lot of people, and I think I mentioned this in many videos. If you didn't like The Irishman, or you were disappointed, or you thought it should have been better or different, just watch it again. Just watch it again, and then come back, and then give your opinion. Because I do think a lot of people will enjoy it more the second time round. I definitely did, and Regin obviously has as well. First time I watched it, I think my original review of the film, I gave it an 8.5, didn't it? I'll probably give it a 9 right now, 9 out of 10. And that would go even higher had the de-aging CGI been perfect, which it isn't, First half of the film, there are a few hokey moments that make it difficult to immerse yourself. I mean, some of the de-aging CGI is amazing, especially Pacino's, who looked almost flawless throughout the film. I don't think a lot of people know that Al Pacino was digitally de-aged for the entire duration of the film. So when you see Pacino in the latter half of the movie, like Frank Sheeran Appreciation Night and the car ride and all that stuff, he's actually digitally aged there as well. I don't think a lot of people know that. So the de-aging CGI doesn't get enough credit, I don't think. Obviously in earlier scenes it's a bit hokey, but that's over after about 45 minutes or so. Regin's asking what's my favourite performance in The Irishman. If you want, you can check out this video I made called, I think it's called De Niro versus Pacino versus Pesci in The Irishman, something like that. but I go into quite a lot of detail with their performances. I think it's about uh, 15 minutes long, so a lot of detail with their performances. I thought all three of them were fantastic. Those three are the guys you came to watch the film for, and those three are the guy. Those are the three guys that gave fantastic performances, and you're gonna remember. So that's fantastic. Joe Pesci was amazing and subtle. Pacino was bombastic, and it was vintage Pacino. Couldn't believe he was almost 80 when he filmed that. And I know this is not going to be a popular choice, but in my video, and I guess I'll stand by this, I went for De Niro as the best. I know people are going to talk about that, the grocery store scene where he stamps on the guy's hand, which I agree is terrible. In fact, I actually made a video on that before most people in the world had actually seen The Irishman, because I saw it at a screening in October, and the film came out on Netflix in November. And before that, I made a video called The One Scene in The Irishman Everyone Hates, and I hate it as well. But yeah, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. I thought De Niro, apart from that, it was really good in the film. There's some key scenes that are his best in his entire filmography. One of his best. Like the part where he phones Hoffa's wife, Hoffa's widow. An amazing scene, fantastic acting. The part where he goes on the plane. There's loads of other stuff. De Niro doesn't get as much credit as he should for The Irishman. There's a lot of things people don't understand about his performance. Like, for example, they cite his age for the fact that De Niro was so lumbering and heavy and slow moving, but he was playing a character that had numerous health problems. He wasn't some like Hitman 47 kind of hitman. He was like he mentioned in the movie, sciatica, I think it was, of fasciitis, but he had health issues. He fought in World War II for over a year. This guy was not some nimble ballerina. So he doesn't get enough credit, I don't think. It was a shame that he was the actor that was ignored at all the award ceremonies. But it was nice, that Pacino and Pesci got the accolades they deserved. Maybe De Niro will get his for Killers of the Flower Moon, Scorsese's next film, which he's going to star in alongside Leonardo DiCaprio. Josh asks, have you seen William Friedkin's 1980 Cruising? Pacino plays an undercover NYPD cop on the hunt of a serial killer. It's dark, gritty, and one of Pacino's most underrated performances. I haven't seen it. I have got it though, and I want to see it. I will do one day. I've heard that. Is that the one where he goes on in like gay nightclubs and stuff? And I heard that a lot of gay people were protesting against it, something like that. But yeah, I think that is the film that I'm thinking of. But yeah, thanks for the recommendation. Mr. Red says Mickey Rourke has a great filmography. I highly recommend watching Rumblefish, directed by Francis Ford Coppola and starring both Rocky, Matt Dillon, and a young Chris Penn and Nicolas Cage. You name it. Sure. Thanks for that recommendation. Mr. Red says reminds me of Denzel Washington in Training Day. Yeah, good call there, Mr. Red. It was nice to see him playing a villain as well, wasn't it? I think that was the first Denzel Washington film I had seen. So obviously I didn't get that feeling that a lot of people had, where seeing wow, Denzel playing a villain. Instead, it was me going wow when Washington plays people like Malcolm X, thinking wow, he plays a hero. David says, I hope Scorsese can make a movie with all the actors he never worked with. Yeah, it'd be nice to see him add a few new faces to his filmography. I know there's a few actors here and there that he's praised, like Johnny Depp, who he's never worked with. But he's worked with a lot, hasn't he? A lot of people don't realise that he's even worked with guys like Tom Cruise, even, Colour of Money, Paul Newman, Ben Kingsley, The Departed, Jack Nicholson again, The Departed. Sorry, did I say Ben Kingsley for The Departed? I meant Ray Winston. Ben Kingsley he did work with, obviously, in Shutter Island and Hugo. But yeah, it would be nice to see him flood Killers of the Flower Moon with a few new faces, in addition to DiCaprio and De Niro, who he always casts. Cyborg says, my favorite scene in the history of cinema is the last scene of Raging Bull when De Niro recites the Marlon Brando monologue from On the Waterfront. Yeah, man, that's a good scene, isn't it? Dr. Butterfield says, bro, if I was an actor, all I would be doing is playing bad guys. It seems to be fun, was it? I mean, I don't know if I'm generalizing here, or I'm just talking out my ass, but it seems that people who play bad guys in films tend to be really nice guys in real life, and a lot of people who play good guys tend to be really stuck up and full of themselves, as if they mistake people's love for their character for them. I guess, maybe playing a bad guy allows you to channel some inner trauma, or just it's just a good release of energy and catharsis, because it seems like playing a bad guy is really fun for a lot of people. Mr. Red says, it's funny you mentioned Stallone, because I was watching Death Race 2000 where he plays the villain in that, and he actually steals the film. Oh, wow, that's cool. He played a villain in another film, just off the top of my head. There's a kids film, Spy Kids 3. He was a bad guy in that as well. A very cheesy, silly movie, though. Adam says, I don't think Tom Cruise's Vincent was a bad guy. He was just taking out the trash. Interesting perspective. But Mann's good in that way. He doesn't really have good guys, bad guys. His male characters are very 3D. There's a lot of dynamics at play. Heat is obviously a good example, where it's not so much that Vincent is a good man and Neil is a bad man, but they kind of that's the game, that's the world that they know. Cops and robbers, that's what they do. They don't like to do anything else. They don't know how to do anything else, as they say. So yeah, I mean, maybe you've got a point in what you say, that he's not a bad guy. The Oncoming Storm says, have you seen Joe Pesci's 90s rap music video for his song Wise Guy? It's hilariously bad. Frank Vincent is in it too, lol. I did, yeah. I think it was you that mentioned it last week, and then I watched it afterwards. It's weird, isn't it, man? It's pretty weird. And I think it's on YouTube. The one that I watched was only about a minute and a half long. I think it was cut in half or something, and Vincent literally appears for like 2 seconds, just standing there staring at the camera. It was pretty weird, man. Mr. Red says, it's not like Gary Oldman, where Gary Oldman constantly played the villain in the 90s and did a great job at it too. Yeah, man, he was a fantastic in the 90s, wasn't he? It's only recently, in the last 20 years or so, since the turn of the century, that he started to play good guys. Harry Potter. There's obviously that Winston Churchill movie he did, Dark Knight films where he played Commissioner Gordon. I heard something about Gary Oldman. I heard that because obviously he I don't know if you guys know this, but he had an interview where he mentioned, I don't think he said anything derogatory. I don't think he said anything bad. He didn't say something along the lines of what Gibson said, but he just pointed out that Hollywood is run by Jews, the Jewish influence in Hollywood is very much felt, and was slammed for that quite a bit. If I remember correctly, this was in the late 90s or early 2000s, somewhere around there, and he had to issue an apology, and his career tanked after this. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know this. If you look at his filmography in the 2000s, early 2000s, you'll see that a lot of his films are really shit, like they were out of nowhere. So then what he had to do, because obviously this is after the 90s, where he was in True Romance, he was in Leon the Professional Dracula, he was all over the town, and he ended up having to go back to England and start working his way up in British productions, hence him starring in the Harry Potter films from the third one. And then Christopher Nolan picked him up, and he kind of worked his way back up, and obviously now he's an Oscar winner, isn't he? So there's something of a quiet comeback there that I don't think a lot of people realize. Ivor says, Wooden Alley, Wooden. Where did I get wooden from? I'm thinking about Toy Story, because I was watching a weird video on YouTube where Woody rapes Buzz. But yeah, anyway. Woody Allen's early films, 1970s, were bloody brilliant. Watched as a teenager in the UK, and then Allen went all serious with mixed results. I've still got a lot of catching up to do with Alan. I've seen a fair few of his films, but not enough because obviously the guy directed almost a film every year since the 70s, which is amazing. Bullets Over Broadway is my favorite of his. This is kind of gangster comedy film he made, which is really funny. And I've seen a few others: Annie Hall, Blue Jasmine, Vicky Cristina Barcelona, and a couple of others here and there. I can't say I'm the biggest Alan fan though. Crimes and Misdemeanors, is that what it's called? I've seen that one. But there's a few classic Alan films that I've yet to see, but I can't really call myself a fan of him just yet, because I don't. Apart from Bullets Over Broadway, Blue Jasmine, and one or two others, I don't really quite connect with his films. Maybe I'm just the wrong target audience, because his films are very New Yorky, aren't they? Concerned with very quirky New York characters. Maybe it just, I don't know. The answer is to watch more of his films, I guess. Mr. Red says Tim Burton is just lazy now. It's all about money, sadly. It seems so, doesn't it? What did you think of Prometheus, says Mr. Butterfield. Prometheus. I have a lot of things that I could say about Prometheus. I'm a big fan of the Alien franchise, by the way. I was really looking forward to Prometheus. I thought to myself, this franchise has been in the dumps for so long. If there's anybody who can do it justice, it's the creator of the original Alien film. Long story short, I was wrong. Prometheus I appreciate it for doing something different. It's very nice visually, it's well acted. But no, I do not like what they did with the Xenomorph. The alien is scary because we don't know what the hell it is. We don't know what the hell it came from. It's just an alien. It's a killing. It's hostile. It's weird. It's got a mouth in its mouth. By saying that the aliens came from that weird black goo, it's all coming back to me now. The giant squid, the big blue man. It was ridiculous. It was like Ridley Scott wanted to make a different science fiction film, and in order to get it greenlit, he had to make it part of the Alien franchise, which kind of is what happened. Alien Covenant took it a step further and made David, so a psycho robot, is the creator of the Xenomorph. That's just so stupid. How can you go back now and watch Aliens or the original Alien, or read any of the comics and think, oh, all of this came from some psycho robot? I think you guys can see that I'm starting to get pissed off, aren't I? Because it shows you just how invested I am in the Alien franchise, and Scott just kind of pissed on it, Cyborg asks your thoughts on Adam Driver. He was brilliant in Marriage Story, Black Klansman, and Scorsese's religious epic Silence. Yeah, I like him from the little I've seen. I've not seen too much. I've seen Marriage Story, which he was really good in. I've seen Silence, which he was good in as well. I've not seen Black Klansman. What else have I seen with him? Because he's been around for a while, but he's only become really big in the last couple of years. So there's a few other films I've seen that he's been in. But I do like him. He's a good actor. David asks, do you think King of Comedy should have won Best Picture instead of Terms of Endearment? I haven't seen Terms of Endearment, so I can't say. Do you work at Walmart? No, David, I don't. Regin says, how do you think DiCaprio and De Niro will work together on the next Scorsese movie? Do you mean in terms of the virus and that? Is that if you could elaborate, please, on your question. Ivor says, The King of Comedy is a terrific Scorsese film starring De Niro. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier on in the live chat. Fantastic film, isn't it? I love King of Comedy. It's so different. It's cringeworthy, isn't it? But on purpose, if that makes sense. Like, you watch it and you're thinking to yourself, bloody hell, what the hell is wrong with this geezer? When you're looking at Rupert Pupkin and all the weird stuff he does. But yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic film. Mr. Red says, I confuse you for being Dutch. The first time I started watching your content and listening to your voice, I don't know why, lol, but the more I hear you talk, yes, you definitely are from England. Yeah, a lot of people try and guess where I'm from based on my voice, but I can tell you that even where I am from, I know I'm in the country, I'm in the town, I don't really speak like the people around me. As I've got a bit, I mean, I don't know if it's because of when I was younger, I dislocated my jaw. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it, but I I don't really speak like other people around me, so you won't probably guess where in England I'm from based on my voice. But yeah, I'm from the UK. If you guys wanted to know. Dr. Goldfinger says, I have the same opinion as last time I saw Tenet, which is an 8 out of 10 or so. It's really cool to see the concept, which is hard to explain, but will be mind blowing after seeing it. It sounds it, a lot of people saying Tenet is really complex, but one of the reasons I want to wait until it comes out on physical release is I want to see it with subtitles. I had a problem with The Dark Knight Rises in that I found it hard to understand what characters were saying. Bane and Gary Oldman in the hospital, they were mumbling their dialogue. It got worse with Interstellar. The sound mixing in Nolan's movies leaves a lot to be desired. And I've heard a lot about Tenet being the same, just amplified. So if I want to enjoy it properly, I'm probably going to have to watch it with subtitles. It's one of my pet peeves with cinema. If I can't understand what people are saying, even if it's one line of dialogue, one line of dialogue can make or break a film sometimes. If I've missed one line of dialogue, I get really pissed off. Regin says, do you think The Irishman should get a remaster with another deepfake or keep it the same? I don't think deepfake is the way to go, because deepfake utilizes images from the actor's past instead of working on the actor's performances in The Irishman. If they were to redo it or add to it, I would prefer them going and using the CGI to basically, better the CGI, not deepfake though. Because those two deep fake videos that were made, where people were saying that, it blows The Irishman's one away. I mean, yeah, it does look like a young De Niro more than The Irishman one did, but there's 2 points here. The first is that The Irishman was never trying to make De Niro look like a young De Niro. They were trying to make him look like a young Frank Sheeran. Secondly, the performance is lost, Look at his performance in The Irishman, then look at his performance in those deep fake videos. It's not the same performance. It's just basically a picture of him when he was younger. And that is something Scorsese was adamant about. I made videos on this before The Irishman came out, where Scorsese was talking about how, he knew there were other ways to do this, ways that would look better, ways that would look more realistic, but you would lose the performance. That's the whole point of having these guys in the film, because of how good they are as actors. So, to answer your question, Regin, not deep fake, but I wouldn't be against the idea of, once the technology has improved, of going back and doing a remaster of The Irishman, because I don't think some scenes will age well. Some scenes don't even look good now. Like the first time you see De Niro in the truck, for example, it kind of stands out. A lot of the de-aging CGI is good, but there are some scenes that could do with the touch-up. But then again, obviously, Scorsese is a purist, and he's not the kind of director who does special editions and director's cuts. He's always is adamant the film that comes out in cinema is the final cut. Mr. Red says, my favourite performances in The Irishman was the Al Pacino and Joe Pesci scene. Also, from the scene they were together. Excellent scene, played brilliantly by two legends. I love that scene. In fact, should I tell you or should I not? Basically, I've got a video coming out. I've done the audio. I don't know when I'm going to release it, but it's basically my top 15 scenes from The Irishman, my favourite scenes. And that scene that you just mentioned, the one with Al Pacino and Joe Pesci, is definitely up there. Steve says, one of the best HBO series, The Deuce, about New York and Times Square in the 1970s. It also shows how the mob ruled in the porn and filming business. Gary Pastor as real Genovese mob boss, Matty Horse. I've heard of The Deuce. Is that the one where Michael Gandolfini is in? James Gandolfini's son. That's what I pretty much know about it. I don't know anything else about it, to be honest. Cyborg says, I'm in my mid-20s and The Irishman changed my life. The movie left a huge impact on my life, on how I perceive aging, the choices that I make every day, and how important it is to look back on your life. That's amazing, Cyborg. Thanks for sharing that. That's pretty deep, man. That's very profound what you've said there. I think it's important for all of us at all ages to reflect, to be introspective, and to be retrospective in our lives. It's very important, lest we become regretful in our old age. So yeah, that's. Thanks for sharing that, Cyborg. It's something we should all be doing. You know, think about the choices we're making in our lives, where we are, where we're going, what do we want from life, what is the purpose of life, etc., etc. David says, have you met any celebrities or saw them in person? Yeah, I've seen a few here and there, sports people, a couple of. Well, I mean, he's not really a celebrity, but I actually worked with what's his name? Craig Vincent. Yeah, Craig Vincent. Obviously, he's not a massive star, but he's the guy who played the cowboy in Casino, and he played Edward Parton in The Irishman. He actually helped me make a video. If you watch a video of mine called The Rise and Fall of Jimmy Hoffa, he narrated it for me. I sent him the script and he narrated the movie for me, which was kind of cool for me. Alex Spur says the movie My Blue Heaven was also about Henry Hill's life and came out in 1990. Yeah, I heard about that. That was the movie that it's written by Nicholas Pileggi's wife. So Nicholas Pileggi was the writer of Goodfellas. She wrote My Blue Heaven, and it's about Henry Hill's life after he went into the witness protection program. It's a comedy though, by the way. I haven't seen it, so I don't know how good it is. David says Johnny Depp was the producer on Hugo. Oh, was he? That's interesting. Is every Scorsese movie based on a book? Asked David. No, I don't think so. I think most of them are, but I think there's quite a few that aren't. Cyborg says your thoughts on Joaquin Phoenix. He is just too good on screen. Gladiator, Walk the Line, The Master, Her, A Beautiful Day. I can't think of a movie he was in that was bad. I like him, man. He was. Is it safe to say he's the best working actor in Hollywood at the moment? Is that too much? Because I mean, I think he's fantastic. The Master was his performance in that film was outstanding. It's funny you should mention Gladiator. It was I think they've released it on Netflix UK recently, and I was rewatching it, and he's brilliant in that film. And like you say, every film he's in, he's great. You know, I can't think of a film that he's been bad in. There's a new series coming out called Your Honor with Bryan Cranston, where he takes on the mob. Says Steve. Is there now? I haven't heard of that. Let me check that out. I'm always on the lookout for more mob dramas and movies. There aren't a lot these days. So let's. Oh, it's a mini series, is it? So it says here. Let me just click on it. Your Honor is an upcoming 10-episode limited series starring Bryan Cranston that is being adapted from the Israeli TV series Kvodo. Is that how you pronounce it? So what's it about? It says the series is a legal thriller that rips through all strata of New Orleans society. Cranston will star as a respected judge whose son is involved in a hit and run that leads to high-stakes games of lies, deceit, and impossible choices. Yeah, it sounds like it's got potential. The Sicilian, says Steve, was a great movie about La Cosa Nostra in Italy. Great performances by Christopher Lambert and John Turturro. Sorry. I've heard of that. That's I can't remember who's that directed by. It was directed by someone I remember who is highly respected. Let me just quickly look that up. Oh yeah, Michael Cimino, of course. So yeah, this is one I want to watch. You know, I've heard a lot about it. It's got low ratings though for some reason, but then people who've seen it say that it's really good. Josh says, have you ever visited New York City or Los Angeles before? Both cities look amazing on the big screen. I haven't, no. There's a lot of places in the world I want to visit. I have not really lived a traveling kind of life. You know, money, time, work, all sorts of things get in the way. But that is something I hope to do in my life, travel around the world a bit more, see a bit more of this land that we all share together. Cyborg says, I'm reading Killers of the Flower Moon, and I have to say it is really creepy, and it is a really creepy and disturbing story. I hope Scorsese keeps those elements in the picture. Yeah, man, it is very disturbing. Without giving details of the plot away, the sheer size of this conspiracy was so scary, you know. I think I'll leave it there because I think some people might be unhappy with talking about plot points of Killers of the Flower Moon. Alex Spurs says, I agree. Alien Covenant ruined the whole Alien universe. When they made an android the creator of the alien species, I thought it was stupid. Yeah, I think we all did, Alex. And not only that, the film is very generic, isn't it? The Xenomorphs, they were done motion capture, but basically painted over with CGI, which didn't look good. Especially that scene with the Xenomorphs in daylight, which looked so stupid and fake. And it was just so generic. It felt like a Halloween film, except with Jason Voorhees, a Xenomorph running around, especially the last 15 minutes or so, where they were trying to trap the Xeno. It's just such a shit film, man. Anyway, where are we? Which actor has the most powerful presence on screen, Anthony Hopkins or Jack Nicholson? That's interesting comparison you got there, Cyborg. I mean, both have great presence, haven't they, in different movies? Because, I mean, obviously, Anthony Hopkins is Hannibal Lecter comes to mind, doesn't he? With his Oscar-winning performance where he was hardly in the film. I think they say, don't they, that he was in the film for less than 15 minutes. And he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Or was it even Best Supporting Actor? Maybe it was Best Actor. And it must have been Best Supporting Actor. But obviously that's a role where he had a lot of presence. Jack Nicholson has just had done a heap of great films, hasn't he? I'm not sure, man. I really think it depends on the film. David says, can you give me a link to an email? I want to email you. You can email me. It's basically cineranta@gmail.com. So, I mean, you know how to spell Cineranta because obviously it's the name of the channel. And then at gmail.com. Whoa, I just elbowed my laptop there, sorry. Cyborg, sooner or later, everybody put here as a date on when he's going to go. It's a line from The Irishman that we should ponder on, you know. We should think to ourselves, one day we're going to die. And every decision we make in life should be in accordance with that knowledge. One day, you are going to die. You're going to go into the ground. Your body's going to disintegrate. There will be a time when no one remembers who you are. So, with that knowledge in mind, how are you going to live your life? You know, the grudges that you have with your siblings, with your mates, is it really worth it? Are you stuck in a job that you've been in for decades that you don't like? You know, and you're going to be dead in a couple of decades. Why not try your best, get a new job, one that you love. You know, that's a line that is very powerful when you think about it. You know, sooner or later, everybody, newborn baby, old man, your teacher that you had in high school, your parents, everybody put here has a date when he's going to go, and none of us know what that date is. Reggie says, thoughts on Michael France's? Yeah, I like watching his videos. His videos are very interesting. He's got a lot of stories to tell. I believe obviously he's got a lot more than that, but he can't mention certain names, indict himself. But yeah, he's very interesting. There's a lot of, because obviously we've not had someone as open as him who was also so high up. So his videos are very interesting. Steve says Michael Gandolfini does play a small role in The Deuce. It's a good show, he says. Mr. Red says Michael Franzese, he's got a really good YouTube channel where he talks about... Oh, sorry, I've just ruined... I've gone all the way up in the chat. Michael Franzese, he's got a really good YouTube channel where he talks about what it was like being in the mafia. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Really interesting channel. Steve says the sequel to Chinatown called The Two Jakes with Jack Nicholson, who reprises his role, and great performance by Harvey Keitel. Oh, Harvey Keitel's in it. Oh, I knew about the film. Jack Nicholson directed that, by the way. Steve, did you know that? I haven't seen the film, but I didn't know. I don't know Harvey Keitel was in it. That's interesting. Is it worth watching? Do you think? I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be watching it, comparing it to Chinatown. But do you think it's worth watching? I know that Roman Polanski, the director of Chinatown, originally wanted. He wanted to make a trilogy. He wanted there to be 3 of them. So it's interesting to know that, because who knows how good the second 2 films would have been had Polanski directed them. Obviously, he pissed off to Europe, didn't he? Because obviously the trial. Mr. Red says, I've seen The Sicilian. Great film directed by the late, great Michael Cimino. That's interesting. Because, like I mentioned, it's got poor reviews. And literally, you've just proven to me that every human that I've talked to who's seen it says it's a great film. Cyborg says, one of the most underrated performances in The Sopranos was Johnny Sack. Incredibly performed by Vincent Curatola. Oh, I think my eyes have been affected. I can hardly see the text. His manners, accent, and presence on screen was so good, so authentic. Yeah, he was brilliant, wasn't he? I love the way when he would get angry, he would start off normal in his sentence and then work his way up. Like when he says, I remember when you used to wait in the car. As far as I'm concerned, you should still be there. But he was a great character and fantastically performed by Vincent, as you say, Cyborg. Steve says, do you know who Bo Deitel is? He was a real-life cop who was brought up around the mob. They made a movie about him called One Tough Cop with Stephen Baldwin and Chris Penn. I do, yeah. He's been in a few Scorsese films. He was in The Irishman, where he played Joe Glimko, a famous Chicago gangster. He was in Goodfellas as well as a cop. And I've heard that there's a few interesting stories about him. Like there's a case of a rapist of 2 girls or something, and he solved the case. I've heard of that film. I haven't seen it though, Steve. Mr. Red says, unfortunately, that day is going to come. That's why it's important to live your life to the fullest. Yep. Of course, it depends on what you mean, but what each individual perceives as living their life to the fullest. For some, that means having as much fun as they can. For some, it means putting work into their family. With some, it's there's religious things people want to do before they die. So yeah. But that quote from The Irishman, one day we're all gonna go. That's very profound. When you think about it. Cyborg Bushin says, during the Sopranos cast reunion, the interviewer asked actor Dominic Chenese, a veteran actor, this is the guy who played Junior, by the way, about his time with James Gandolfini on screen, and the man cried, remembering the "Don't You Love Me" scene. That's sad, isn't it? The whole cast had nothing bad to say about James Gandolfini. So it shows you just how loved he was, wasn't it? Mr. Red says the two Jakes is good, not too bad. So Regin's asking, when did you decide to make a YouTube channel? So it's interesting because I've always been a big movie fan ever since I was a kid, and cause obviously growing up watching films like Aliens and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and then getting into old black and white films, Humphrey Bogart movies, James Cagney films. Teenagers don't watch those kind of movies. At least not any teenagers that I know, and my friends didn't watch those kind of films, so I didn't have really anybody to talk to about movies. So I used to talk online. I used to talk on the IMDb forum. So if you guys don't know, IMDb used to have a forum where they had an individual forum for every movie title on IMDb, which is fantastic. So you could start a conversation on a movie, and it'll be running for years. You could you could go on a movie, go on the forum, see that there's conversations that are on there for like 10 years, and join the conversation. I loved it. It was fantastic. And IMDb ended up shutting that down. I think it was when after they got bought out by Amazon, and Amazon wanted to make a more commercialized website. But the problem for me was that now I had no one to talk to about movies. But one door closes for you and another opens. They say that the advancement of human beings only comes from when we're in trouble. When we're in dire need of something, not when we're happy. And so then I kind of thought to myself, right, how do I get this out? How do I talk about films? I started off with a blog, I did it on a blog, but I just wasn't feeling it with a blog. I feel like I was talking to myself, no one's listening. So then I started making videos on YouTube, talking about films, talking about, doing movie reviews, just, here and there. And then it started to rise in popularity, especially the Irishman videos, which was the film that I had been looking forward to more than any other film ever made. And so I doubled down on that. It was an amazing coincidence that the film I was looking forward to most was the film that was getting me most views. And so it just went from there, And today I'm here. I still make videos on the Irishman. I've branched out a little bit more by making videos on gangster films in general, crime films. I occasionally talk about other kind of movies that I like spaghetti westerns, for example. I review almost every film I ever watch. And yeah, that's about it, really. I do have other hopes and plans for the channel, but at the moment, there's no point making certain types of videos because I know no one's going to watch them. So as the channel grows, you'll be seeing more and more varied kind of videos. So yeah, Regin, that's why I made a YouTube channel, and that was about 3 years ago. Cyborg says, sorry if I sound morbid, guys. Nah, man, these are conversations. These are real conversations that people really need to have, because we're sitting here talking about films. Ultimately, films are not important, that's the reality. I know in terms of art, films are obviously important, and I'm saying this as a huge film fan. Ultimately, in the real world, films are not important. If, let's say, all of us, our country is being bombed and we're on the run, and the soldiers are coming and they're trying to kill us, we're not going to be worried about Scorsese's next film coming out, are we? We're going to be worried about our lives. So, Cyborg, these are the kind of conversations people need to be having more of. So yeah, don't apologize, man. Steve says, Carmine Lupacazzi, played by Tony Lip, was a real-life bouncer. Oh, I think Bowner, I think he meant bouncer, but for the mob. And the movie Green Book is based on his life. Tony Lip has also played in Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco, and Greenwich Village. Yeah, he has. So Tony Lip is the guy who played Carmine. Yeah, the New York boss in The Sopranos, and he's had quite an eventful life. And the guy who Vigo plays in Green Book is based on the real life actor is based on his life. Steve says, 2 movies you should review: Eureka 1990 and Backtrack, of Joe Pesci, most underrated films, and he plays mob boss in both. I need to check those out. You've said that before as well, and I've not yet checked it out. I get a lot of people hitting me with movie recommendations, and it's just so hard to keep up. David says, do you think The Last Temptation of where are we? Yes, do you think Last Temptation should have won Best Picture instead of Rain Man? Not necessarily. Rain Man was a good film. That's the kind of film that wins Best Picture, doesn't it? Last Temptation was very controversial. And Rain Man, on the other hand, it's got, in terms of political, if it came out today, the political correct crowd would be all over it. Because it's got, brothers rekindling their relationships, a mentally disabled man, all that kind of stuff. But it is actually, it is a good film. Cyborg says, what's your worst fear for Many Saints of Newark? I guess there's two. The first is uh, ruining the original series. Like, say they put something in there in the storyline that ruins the original series. Like, say, I don't know, something stupid like Christopher's actually Tony's son. You know, he had an affair with someone, something like that. You know, something really stupid like that. I don't think they're gonna do that, but potentially that could come up because obviously they have to make an interesting storyline, and they are obviously going to link it to The Sopranos. Secondly, I'd probably say just coming off as a cheap caricature of the original series, like a trip down memory lane, in just being an inferior add-on, which would be a real shame given the level of talent involved. It's it's a weird one. Many Saints of Newark. A lot of people are not looking forward to it. They think it's going to be shit. I'm hopeful though. I think there's a lot of potential there. It's not necessary. The Sopranos is perfect, but who knows? It may be a case of like Blade Runner 2049, another movie completely unnecessary, and they gave us a very very decent film out of that. So who knows? Many Saints. There's a lot of Sopranos fans out there. I'm one of them. You guys are some of the rest of them, and we'll see. We'll see. March now, isn't it? March is coming out. I think originally it was February, but then they moved it to March. Obviously, had the original plan been in place, it would have come out 2 days ago, September the 25th, if I remember correctly. That was the original release date. Also, by the way, guys, I don't know if you guys know, I've got a video coming out where I mention it. They've actually started refilming the Many Saints of Newark. So basically, what happened was they filmed it in 2019. I remember they had a wrap party, so they finished filming. Then they were called back. Not all of the cast, but some of the cast was called back for reshoots in March. Now, obviously, March is when the COVID stuff started happening and the lockdown started happening. And something I mentioned in a previous video was I wasn't sure. It wasn't actually known at the time to the general public whether they had finished filming or not. Sorry, apologies. Probably burst your eardrums there. It wasn't clear whether they had finished filming the reshoots, and but now it is clear. What happened was that it's clear why the film was delayed. It wasn't like a lot of these other films like Wonder Woman and that, where they delayed the films because they think no one's going to come to the cinema because of the virus. They literally hadn't finished the film. They've gone back now and they're reshooting it. Literally as we speak, they're doing reshoots. So yeah, interesting. David says, not sure if I heard your answer earlier, but what is some of the worst movies you've seen? I don't know, to be honest. The very worst movies I've ever seen are probably films that I don't even remember the names of. These kind of crappy films you see on the Sci-Fi Channel and stuff. Have you seen The Drop, says Mr. Red, starring Tom Hardy and James Gandolfini? Came out back in 2014. Yeah, I have. A good little film. Small-scaled, gritty, low-key, but a really good film. Cyborg, we're more ghosts than people. Yes, you've gone from Frank Sheeran to Arthur Morgan, haven't you? That's a quote from Red Dead Redemption 2, which funnily enough has similar themes to The Irishman. But yeah, I mean, I remember there was quite an interesting scene in Red Dead Redemption 2 where Arthur talks to Charlie while you're riding a horse on the way to a mission, and Arthur talks about how he's gonna die. He knows he's gonna die because he's got tuberculosis, and Charles kind of flips this on its head and says that in a way you've been given a blessing because you're going to die. You know that you've got time to reflect, whereas the rest of us, we don't know when we're going to go. So that was quite interesting. Yes, Steve, Jack and Jill, that was a shit film, wasn't it? Oh man, that was horrible. I think that was my first Adam Sandler film. He plays that woman, the twin of his male character, and Al Pacino is head over heels. Oh man, I hated that film so much. There's not an ounce of funniness in that film. Tony Sirico, sorry, where are we? Yes, Steve has some more trivia for us. Tony Sirico, good actor. He was also a soldier for the mob. There's an interview with him in 1989 before playing Paulie Walnuts. He played in The Pickup Artist, Backtrack, Goodfellas, Fingers, Miami Vice. Yeah, well-known piece of trivia about The Sopranos. Sarico being a former real-life gangster. Funnily enough, I've got a video about Sarico coming out. Basically, I don't know if you guys know it. When is it coming out? I think it's coming out next week or 2 weeks away. Basically, Sarico, I don't know if you know this, but Paulie in The Sopranos, he always has his hands in front of him. Have you noticed that, guys? He tends to always put his hands in front of him, together, almost like he's holding something. And there's actually a really interesting reason why he does that. And I explain in this video I've got coming out. David's asking my favorite YouTuber. I've got quite a few who I follow. I don't really have a clear favorite. Very few of them are actually movie related. I don't really follow movie channels that much. Like there's this guy who's an ex-convict, and he talks about his experiences in prison. There's a few philosophical and spiritual channels I follow. I know it sounds weird coming from a guy who watches gangster movies, but yeah, there's channels here and there, loads of different sports channels as well. I'm a big football fan, soccer I think you Americans call it. Yes. By the way, guys, should I tell you something? I was gonna wait until there was a lot of people on, so we've got about 12, 13, 14 people. Should I tell you something interesting? Some of you guys might not find this interesting, but do you guys know? So I guess this is what they call an expose, yeah. This guy exposed. This kind of YouTube drama. Or, this guy's cancelled. I've started now. I might as well finish. So, do you guys know who the Dabbing King is? If you don't, he is basically my number one fan. He's been following my YouTube channel for ages, for years, and he's a crazy geezer. Like some of his comments were so weird. Like, I remember once he said that "Insinuante, I am a tool for you. Use me as you will," and things like that. Anybody who said anything bad about me, he would start swearing at them. And there's loads of crazy stuff that he said over time. But anyway, I found out something about him, and he's always on the live chat as well. He's always on the live stream. He's always commenting on my videos, and the time has come for the Dabbing King. His time is over now, guys, because I have found something out about the guy. It turns out he was actually someone I knew in real life. I caught him out, and I always suspected this. I always thought the Dabbing King was this guy, because there was too many coincidences. Like he would say similar things to the Dabbing King. And not only that, the way he talked was similar. There was big coincidences, like the Dabbing King would be online on the live chat, and my friend that I know would be texting me on WhatsApp at the same time. So there was loads of coincidences like that. I always suspected it. I confronted him. I said, "I know you're the Dabbing King. I know you're the Dabbing King." But he always was adamant. He was always saying, no, I'm not. He's just a crazy guy. I don't know who that is. And there's a few things that threw me. Like, I'm not sure 100%, but I think I told him about the channel after the Dabbing King started commenting on my videos. And plus, the Dabbing King gave me money on the live chat. He did the super chat. And I thought to myself, if my friend's not going to take a prank this far, is he? That he's going to start giving me real money. But it turns out, guys, the Dabbing King was a fraud the whole time. He was literally one of my close mates in disguise. And I'll tell you how I caught him. The truth always comes out in the end. I firmly believe this. The truth always comes out in the end. The guy asked me to send him an email. My friend, who it is. And he actually goes on. He's actually someone who comes on the live stream sometimes. Not today, probably out of embarrassment, because I told him I'm going to expose the Dabbing King today. So yeah, he's got one account, the Dabbing King, and another account that he comments with. And one of the most pathetic things he did was had an argument with himself online in one of my videos. Who Was Crazy Joe Gallo video, there was a huge uh, argument where it was just him arguing with himself. It's been deleted now, I think, by YouTube. But yeah, I caught him because he asked me to send him an email. And when I was about to type in his email, he had the same image the Dabbing King had. And then I took a screenshot and I sent it to him. I said, listen, this is the final proof, you bastard. I know you're the Dabbing King. And I finally got it in the end. So yeah, guys, you're not going to be seeing the Dabbing King around anymore because he has been exposed and the Dabbing King is cancelled. And if you don't know who that is, then don't worry about it. And if I've just wasted the last 5 minutes of your life, I'm sorry about that. So let's get back to the live chat. What are some games you're going to play, says David? I'm not sure. I mean, the thing is, if more people watched my videos on video games, I would make more. Because I do want to play a lot more games that I have sitting upstairs that I just never got around to because I don't have enough time. But, you know, I enjoyed Red Dead Redemption 2 and a few other games, and there's a lot of classics I haven't played. But obviously, you know, games take up more time than movies, and you can't play them wherever you are like you can when you read a book. So, and I'm not someone who has a lot of free time. So, you know. Michael asks, have you read The Family Corleone, The Godfather prequel? Sorry, The Family Corleone. The Godfather prequel by Ed Falcao. Ed Falcao, funnily enough, that's the name of the woman who plays Carmela in The Sopranos, Eddie Falcao. I think it's one of the better post-Godfather novels and based on a screenplay by Mario Puzo. I haven't read it, no. I haven't even read Mario Puzo's novels, so if and when I did, I would start with his first. Steve says, I'm excited. Fargo Season 4 first episodes are out today and excited for The Mandalorian Season 2 coming out. I'm not seen Fargo, but I am excited as like you are for The Mandalorian. I've seen and reviewed the first season, which I thought was really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it's the best Star Wars thing since ages. They really captured the vibe of Star Wars perfectly. Hold up, let me just take my jacket off. It's getting hot now. It was freezing before. Cyborg says, in my opinion, the best franchise in video game history is the Metal Gear Solid franchise, a momentum in the action stealth genre. It has mind-blowing and ultra-complex storytelling with amazing characters. Yeah, I played some of the third one, which I enjoyed. I had no idea what was going on in the story, obviously. And then I played some of the one that was on the PS4. I think it's Metal Gear Solid 4, I think it's called. And again, I enjoyed the little I played of it, but I had no idea what was going on in the story. And I remember once when I was at work, someone who's a huge fan of the Metal Gear franchise, me and him sat down and he said to me it's impossible to explain the story because it's so complicated. But he basically sat down, tried to explain it in brief. And it did sound cool, but it still sounded so complicated. Like there's Solid Snake and the Liquid Snake, and they were all made from the same guy or something. But I don't really remember. But I mean, in a perfect world, I'd want to sit down and play all the games from A to Z. There's so many video games I want to play, but you know, I just haven't had the time. I haven't picked up a game console controller in maybe a year, maybe more than that. Favorite monster movies? Asks David. Oh, that'll be one of the three of Aliens, Predator, or The Thing. Mr. Red has recommended a YouTuber, Oliver Harper. Let me just see who that is. So I don't really know a lot of film reviews on YouTube. Mr. Red says he's from the UK. He's great. He's a great YouTuber that does a great job of reviewing films and scores. Oh yeah, I do know who this guy is. Yeah. I've seen a few of his videos. Yeah, he's pretty cool. He's made or is making a documentary, isn't he? He's got a retrospective reviews as well. Yeah, I'll do that. Retro reviews. So yeah, he made this. Yeah, there it is. I think it's called In Search of the Last Action Heroes. This documentary that he's making about action movies. So I can see that he's got uh, teasers out for it, interviews. I don't think he's actually released the full thing yet, has he? But yeah, I mean, I know him. He's a good YouTuber. Daniel says, I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for the first time and I don't know how I feel about it. Keep going, man. Keep going all the way till the end. I guarantee you're going to love it. Don't expect the first game. You know, don't expect a remake of the first game. As with anything, expect new things, and especially with it being a prequel, I would say don't thunder your way through the story. You know, let it take its time. One of the best things to do in Red Dead Redemption 2 is to go to camp and talk to the characters. There's many scenes, for example, where opportunities where Arthur can go and sit with one of the girls and they just talk about life and things that are going on and problems and stuff like that. You get a lot of insight into the characters from just going around talking to them. So don't plow through the story if you want to get a fuller experience. Cyborg says the creator of Metal Gear Solid is Hideo Kojima, a legendary game developer, a big fan of movies. His latest game, Death Stranding, starred actors like Norman Reedus, Mads Mikkelsen, and Lea Seydoux. Yes, I've seen gameplay footage of that. Looks really realistic. Um, he based Solid Snake on Snake Plissken in John Carpenter's Escape from New York, didn't he? Yeah. Cyborg says, enjoy your fishing, kid, while you still can. Edgar Ross to a younger Jack Marston. Pretty funny how life turns on you. How life turns quick on you. Yeah, Cyborg, that's a clever scene, isn't it? Seeing as though what happens later on. Let's not. I mean, actually, Daniel. I mean, Daniel. I'm guessing you've played the first game, yeah. So you know uh, the importance of the scene that Cyborg has just mentioned. If you've actually reached it yet, it's early on in the game. But yeah, I won't say anything because obviously you might get irritated with spoilers and that. Do you like war movies? Asks David. Yeah, I like a fair few war movies. Um, I really like Stanley Kubrick's Paths of Glory. Steven Spielberg's what do you call it? Saving Private Ryan is a good action film. You got a Full Metal Jacket. There's a couple of oldie war movies like All Quiet on the Western Front, which I really liked. There's loads of stuff. Loads of good war films. I'm not sure if I heard your answer, says David. But Scorsese wrote some books like Scorsese on Scorsese and others. Are you going to read them? I don't think so. No, I don't really read film literature. I've got a book that I've ordered, which I found interesting, which was basically subliminal messages that are hidden in Hollywood films that I'll read and I'll review in the channel. But in general, I haven't really read that much literature on film. I prefer, watching the movies as opposed to reading about them. Also, Daniel's near the end of Red Dead Redemption 2. I've been diagnosed. So yeah, you've definitely experienced the fishing scene. So obviously Edgar Ross is the guy who Jack Marston killed at the end of the first Red Dead Redemption. And he does so at a lake where Ross is fishing. And obviously, the first time they ever met, obviously Arthur is fishing with a little Jack. So yeah, a nice little Easter egg there they put in the game for us. Cyborg asks, my pick for the next James Bond. I'm not sure, to be honest. I heard Tom Hardy's in the running to play him. Like, there's strong rumors that he's going to be the next James Bond. I'm not sure, you know. I think there's quite a lot of people who could play him, because the thing is, he's not it's not like the actor who plays him needs to aspire to be a certain way. Every actor brings their own thing to the table. Like, my favorite, for example, is Sean Connery. He is James Bond. You know, for everybody else is an impersonator, as far as I'm concerned. But I just think, someone who's, good looking, masculine, can play a suave character. Uh, yeah, I don't really have any specific choices, but I don't think it's as difficult of a role to play as a lot of people make out. It's more the how iconic the role is and how ingrained it is into pop culture. But if the guy gives a good performance, regardless of how different it is, I think people are going to buy it. Like, with Daniel Craig, people are pissed off that he was blonde. He was a lot more actiony, James Bondy, with all the parkour thing that was happening in Casino Royale. But people bought it because he was a good James Bond and it was a good film. The Oncoming Storm says, have you seen the Netflix TV show Lilyhammer starring Steve Van Zandt? It's an absolute hidden gem of a show. It's hilarious. A great blend of crime comedy genre. I haven't, no. I didn't know it was on Netflix. I do know about it. I know that it's about Steven Van Zandt playing a mobster who goes to was it Norway, I think? But basically a European town, a European country in hiding. And a lot of people like to think of it as a Sopranos sequel, like a comedy version. I know Paulie Walnuts does make an appearance, the Tony Sarico, who played Paulie Walnuts in Sopranos. I've heard it's very good. I didn't know it was on Netflix. I've got Netflix, obviously, so I might check it out. Maybe it's worth reviewing on the channel. Daniel saying, I feel Arthur is Jack's dad. I don't really know how to comment, just in case you don't want spoilers. But that is a strong theory. There's a lot of videos out there on that. So, guys, what do you say? We've been going for like an hour and a half now. You guys wanna stop the live stream now? Should we call it a day? Unless you guys have got more things you want to say. Cyborg saying, have you seen This Is England? Stephen Graham was incredible in it. Yeah, I have. He was really scary in that film. Fantastic performance from Stephen Graham. One of the quintessential Graham performances. In fact, I think, if I remember correctly, he mentioned in an interview that he actually was denied job offers. He wasn't getting work after that film because people found him that scary. It tells you all you need to know, doesn't it? Daniel says, I know how Red Dead 2 ends, by the way. Well, do you though? Because there's different endings, and also there's the ending, there's the beginning of the prologue, and there's the end of the prologue. Epilogue, sorry, not prologue. But yeah, I'm not talking about it because I don't want to spoil it for you in case there's something I might accidentally mention that you don't know about, whether it's the ending or not. But yeah. So shall we call it a day, lads? I will work on my my review of Rambo: Last Blood, and I'll release it now, if you guys want. Yeah, Daniel, make sure you're honourable. Yeah, make sure you get as high honour as possible, because then you get the best ending. But yeah, guys, let's call it a day. I had a lot of fun today. I think you guys had some good discussions going. Some really interesting questions. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm only seeing the same names here, which is really cool. Yeah, I'll call it. Well, I'll just answer one more question that Cyborg's asked, and then we'll call it a day. He said, "What's worse, being killed by your best friend or dying after years of regret?" I mean, this also is dependent on if you believe in an afterlife. But just at face value, I would say, dying after years of regret. Sheeran had a worse death than Hoffa, because ultimately, ignorance is bliss. Hoffa, until the very end, believed that Sheeran was on his side. He didn't know he was going to be killed by him. So he died not knowing that. Maybe at the last second of his life, he found out what was going on, but, then it was over after that. Whereas Sheeran had to live with that guilt for decades. So yeah, I would say that's a worse death. So yeah, guys, thanks for this. I enjoyed myself. See you guys next week, Saturday, 11 o'clock UK time, 6 p.m. Washington time. And bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for being here with me. I had a great time. I hope you did too. See you later.